Good morning. How are we?
Morning, everyone.
For joining us. Oh, looks like we got Stacy. Stacy.
First.
Morning. Good morning. Morning, Mom.
Morning, Shannon.
Aloha, Keanu. Kirby. What's up, buddy? Welcome, everybody. So this week we're going to get into, I called it budgeting, but this week we're really talking about time, budgeting time, not financials. But we'll probably get into that.
I'm sure we will.
At some point. Gun Bunny, what's up, sir? Good morning. So budgeting time, when you have somebody model something for you, it's like when you have somebody paint, like, you know what the finished product is, you know what you want it to look like, what it's supposed to look like, you can provide all the reference pictures in the world. Well, it's the getting to that point that's the unknown for most, especially when it comes to 3D modeling, because in our minds, I think we have that set as something that is very easy, and while it's straightforward, it may not be quite as simple as we make it seem. Is that right, Pop?
Yeah. So we've talked to the last shows about the whole process, and I did a couple of weeks ago. I did the inspiration board, and that was just kind of a preview of a project that we got coming up. So today we're going to talk about the inspiration board, and how much time it takes to get to that first step, which really is pretty quick. What really gets to you is when you start doing the work, especially when it is something that you are prototyping. Like somebody says, like, I showed the gun silhouettes, and someone says, yeah, I like that silhouette. Okay, well, how do I get from silhouette to a product? So that's kind of going to be the focus today, is that quick workflow of determining why I picked what I'm going to do, and then today I'm going to present some of my time that I have spent on Onshape, just developing this one part. That's kind of, I think, and we've talked about this many times, and this is true. I know I have friends that are, that build furniture or build wooden chessboards, things like that. And very commonly someone, you've got this coffee table that you made, and you're like, it's about $600, and people at like craft shows and stuff will be like, well, I can get that, I can get that at Walmart, for $70. Well, yes, you can, but it's not this one of a kind piece, or it's not this piece, and you're not paying me for the wood. You're not paying me for the lumber. I mean, that is part of the cost.
Materials are always a small piece.
Yeah, it's a small piece. You're paying me for my time because I have experience and you don't. And I don't. I'm not trying to sound like an elitist or a snob, but that's true. If you want a really good piece of fish, you probably aren't going to go to Sonic or Hardee's fast food to get you some fish. So it's the same kind of concept. Like those companies have decided this is what we're going to offer and this is what we do, and they've been doing it long enough that I was joking with Shannon the other day about how for some reason chicken nuggets haven't gone up in price very much in 20 years. Like, you can still get about 40 chicken nuggets for $10, and I just think that's funny that with all of the other things, meat, burger, and all that, the prices, slowly gone up, and they've had to increase prices, and now you've got this, and yeah, Kirby, a tattoo artist, is the same thing. I'm not paying you to just slap a decal on my arm and rub it down with water. I mean, I'm paying you because I'm dependent on you knowing exactly what you're doing. Especially a tattoo is permanent. I'm gonna put that on my body,
Yeah.
And to me, it would be worth, there's local guys that could do a 4x4 tattoo of something for $70-$80.
Sure.
maybe, I'd be worried about that. I'd much rather go to somebody that I've heard a lot about, that I know their work is amazing. I know they work really well with the customers, and it may be $180 tattoo, but I know it's going to be good because they put the time in.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm paying for. I'm paying for your experience. I'm paying for your knowledge and what you're doing. I'm not necessarily paying just for straight labor. I mean, if you're digging a ditch today and you go to Home Depot to pick some people up that need work today, you know what you're paying for.
Sure.
But
Sure.
if you wanted a full-time person to run an entire project, not just the digging of the ditch, the entire project, you're not going to go to Home Depot to pick that person up. You're gonna search online. You're gonna find somebody that has that experience, and that's what you're gonna pay them to do. And you're gonna probably pay them pretty good to do that based on their experience.
Yeah.
And that gets lost. That gets lost, and it's no different just because these are toys. So many, especially in the last few weeks, I've noticed a lot of people, like when you try to have a serious discussion about toys, they'll always come back to, dude, it's just toys. Like, well, it's not just toys to me. It's there's a lot more to it, and we've talked about that in videos and other shows we've been on. There's a lot more to it than that to me. So for me, it doesn't matter what you're working on. It's you want to put your heart and soul into it, but you don't always want to put your heart and soul into it for free. You kind of want to get paid. That said, what I'm going to focus on today will be on actually doing a CAD model, and I'm going to present this from. Well, it's excellent that I get to do this, but I'm going to show you this from the very beginning to a 3D printed part. My CAD work, I get $45-50 an hour, and I'm not going to say I'm like really good at it, but what I am really good at is, because we talked about design intent a couple of shows ago. So now design intent is part of my workflow, and it's how I think about everything. I think about everything like, yeah, I can make this for a 3D print. Could I manufacture it? Could I make molds off of it? If I was going to make molds, what changes am I going to have to make? So I try to keep all that in mind. But that's all part of my experience. That's part of my knowledge. So today we're going to talk about that. I'm going to walk you guys through, as unexciting as it might sound, I'm going to walk you through, and Joseph, I'm going to walk you through the process. I'm going to walk you through how I got to decide what I was going to do with the inspiration board. I drew a concept. I'm going to show you the concept and the quick sketch that I did. I don't do much 3D or computer drawing. I will use computers if I'm doing like a finished piece of artwork and I want to make sure everything looks right to flip it over and all of that. I may do that, but just for a quick concept thing, I'm just going to do a sketch and an ink. The ink is not like what I would ink if I was doing comic book style art, but it's just to darken the line so I can keep it on my desk and keep looking at it. So it's always there. It's the inspiration board is my inspiration, and then I'm going to take that, and my focus, is going to be this other project. So that's what we're going to do today, and I'm going to go. This is a long thing, so I'm going to be speeding a lot of it up. But while I show it to you, I'm going to talk about where I got an idea or why I did something that I did. Because while I'm designing something, especially something that is mechanical in nature, I try to come up with like how it would really work. We all like love movies with laser guns, but there's never really been a laser gun like that you could use in combat, like as a weapon. Even G.I. Joe, when they did Sci-Fi and Flash, basically you were kind of under the impression that they used the laser as just a high intensity heat source, you know. In one of the coloring books, Flash used his rifle to gently cut the insulation off of wiring, you know. Uh, Sci-fi, it talks about him being holding still and being able to sit totally still to draw a laser like onto like a control box to short it out, things like that. So nobody's really ever like told us how a laser gun works. But for me, mechanically, it has to make some kind of sense. So
sure,
we'll talk about that. Morning. So that is, before we get into that, I wanted to do a couple of updates on projects we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
And hold on here. I'm just going to hold this up. This is the sci-fi kit so far. Made a few changes to it. Just to make it easier, this is not going to have the split in the bottom and the side, the armor, and it doesn't need it. It's good enough even on the tripwire body, which is a little bulkier than the other bodies, but this I think is the best body for this version of sci-fi.
Yeah.
Even on this, so you just put it in a little warm water and slide it over the top of it after you've taken the arms off. Other changes I've made is I added a secondary drop for the hose. You still use this one if you like the classic style, but at the bottom of this nozzle pressure gauge, there is a drop for the hose. And that makes it so it's not so tight when you're trying to pose him. Also, the helmet has a spot in this little antenna back here let's see if I can get a good picture of it. Oh, wrong way. Yeah, so there it is. So the wire that goes from Sci-Fi's helmet goes right into that communication thing. This wire is a guitar string. And when we get the kit ready for sale, there'll be a piece of that guitar string in there.
Hold that up to the camera again, Pop. And then put your hand like this, like bring it up close and try to block out some of the back and see if it'll focus.
I had a piece of paper in here for that. I guess I took it somewhere. Is that focusing?
No, it's not.
Okay.
All right. We'll put pictures on the Facebook page.
Yeah. Hold on just a second. I may actually have an image that'll work here. Well, I thought I did. Anyway, we will put pictures up. The other one is the Dragonski kit. Moving along.
Nice.
I still have some. This is just a fit test. I still have to put little glove marks in it and make it fit a little better at the wrist. But this is what this kit will come with. Backpack. And this is crazy sticking out like this, but I modeled this after the real part, the real Russian piece. So it's part of that manifold, and it's how it looks.
A giant manifold.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's like long tube headers on that thing.
It is, and that's how these little things work too. These little things you can see at the top of the backpack. That's what they are. These are sequential injectors, and they rope them around on top of the tank so that they're all equal length, just like they would a header to go into where it pressurizes into the manifold. So that's kind of I don't know. I didn't model that because it's not that important, and they would be tiny, and it would just be it would be difficult to try to get that in there. So, but this is how he's looking right now. So those two kits are well on their way. I'd say we're a week or two out from being able to have them on the page. So let's see here. There we go. Is that showing all right?
Yep.
All right. So this is, as I showed you guys last week, this is the inspiration board. I did a quick print just to do this because at the time I did it yesterday, I just did not feel like doing it all online. So So here's how this was my original like concept for a toy line. Um, this is the basic look I kind of want for our spaceman. And I've already modeled a vest for it. So I don't want to use that vest for the spaceman, mainly because of this area here and going by this, and I will talk about this. There are some reasons. This is what we're trying to do here. This is just a Fisher Price repaint of the same exact thing, and we kind of want to go for that. We want an ominous looking when it's in black. I love this design, but it really doesn't have much. But what I do love is this helmet design here. I really like this.
Really got the Cosmic Legion style, where it's not a bubble like normal, it's a forward bubble and the back has stuff on it. That's cool.
Yeah. And I don't want to totally copy them, so I'm going to go somewhere in between. But the reason I don't want to use the armor is this with this guy right here is you can tell that he has a connector for that kind of a helmet. So that's why instead of using this armor, I'm going to come up with something new for this.
So that would be like if the soldier was deployed onto an Earth with an atmosphere, you could lose the bubble and some of the other stuff, and still have your chest rig and your gear all
exactly
on there. You just wouldn't have to carry your bubble outside of the ship or whatever.
Exactly, and that is kind of how in the Buzz Lightyear movie, Lightyear. I'm not a big fan of the movie, but the costume design, the designs of each suit that he wears for each type of spaceship that he flies, is pretty cool. And the one that we used for our build of our Star Brigade guys, that design was very much like that. The vest was fully operational without the helmet, but they were just making a very basic toy that it was just to look like the movie. And so think that, but turned up to 11.
It's fine with that. Nice.
I didn't use much off of this. I want to someday. I really love this knee pad design. I talked about that earlier, but it's very feminine, and it may have use later. So looking at all of these, I'm going to have to pick one, come up with a design. But one thing we're going to end up focusing on today is the gun from that sketch. Oh, there's the little exclamation part, just so you know I'm serious.
Ah, you are serious.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking at there. And then let's see here. So now I want to. This video is not very long, but my first step. So now honestly, the inspiration board, going through it and picking out what you like and the design elements you like, only takes 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't take much time at all. But like I said a couple of weeks ago, if I know what you want, if I'm making this for somebody else and you tell me exactly what you want, then that goes way faster. I already have the inspiration board. You said, well, I want it to look like this and I want to do this. So we will jump into this. So now I'm going to start with I'm going to start putting the elements that I want together. And this is very slow. So I'm just going to do a basic sketch of the parts that I want. Obviously, human body underneath it is kind of important, but it'll take a few minutes to do that. And this is the first step for me, is I want to visualize what I'm going to be making. So here I am messing with this. These are really loose pencils. I don't get into a lot of detail here. I'm just trying to get shapes built out. Because me personally, I love the way a bubble helmet looks. So it just kind of while I'm doing this, I'm looking at the inspiration board. It's out of the screenshot, but you can see this is what I'm doing here. there's probably going to be a lot more work done on that shoulder pad. So for now, it's just there as a look. We're building this on a distro body, so I'm taking cues from the distro body. We haven't made a decision yet for sure if I want to do these, armbands or if I want to leave them loose. I do like the armored legs and arms, but I'm still trying to focus on that really lean design, like in that bottom drawing on the inspiration board.
Jerk. Morning, buddy. Shane, what's good, sir?
I'm not going to waste much time on the gun here because it's just going to be, I know what gun I'm going to build for it, so it's just a basic shape. The boots are still trying to figure out what to do with them, and I'm going to start tightening the pencils up here. I was going to put hair on him. See, I changed my mind at the last minute. This is a very fluid process. And that's the idea. That's why you start out drawing really light, because you may change a lot of things on it. This is a concept piece. I'm not trying to build a certain character or make something that I already know about. I'm trying to make something, I'm just putting all the pieces together that I want to incorporate. And I do really like the jump style boots from the Starcom picture that I had.
With the thrusters built into the calf area. Yeah, that is
cool. I really like the way that looks, and it gives that bulkiness. And with that bulkiness, again, it's that hourglass shape, like big and beefy on top, tight in the middle, and that gives it it grounds the design.
Nice bell bottoms.
So that's the sketch, and then very quickly I will throw some ink on it. And this is not, please do not take this as a professional inking situation. This is, hold on. This is just me starting to trace the lines and darken up the things that I really like and know that I want to incorporate. My lines aren't very smooth because I'm working around my ghetto camera thing here, so.
John's a trace. You go around the lines. You already trace it.
That's what everybody says inkers are, right?
Fat Albert didn't have a tracer. Bill Cosby did the whole thing with a roller, and it was excellent.
I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Like I say, this is for nothing except just to put next to my workstation so I can be looking at it and figure out what I'm building towards here. So there are going to be elements that this will share with another build later, but for now it's just a quick rundown. Like I say, I can leave the pencil one laying around, but I just like throwing some ink on it just so that I know exactly what I'm doing. And there, let me just throw some more lines on it, just whatever.
Yeah, put some lines in there. You got to McFarlane it up a little bit. Yeah. Can't have it too clean.
All right, so that is that's that part of it. Nice. Like I said, at this point, I've got just under an hour in it. Like, sketches are cheap and quick, and there's no real time involved in that. It's something that I do that is me, like taking all the ideas that I have, everything that I want to do. If I was doing something for someone else, I would do my own sketch also. I wouldn't just keep their stuff there. So that's kind of what I am doing. And so the next step is going to be to take, let's see here. I'm going to do present again here. So this is the inspiration board. So what we're going to focus on is this gun. I'm going to make this gun. When I made this sketch, I just wanted to find something that looked bulky, something that looked like it could that it would be fine to use if you were doing hull-to-hull breaching for spaceships. The idea here is probably some sort of a plasma gun. I went back and forth on what these would be, if this would be some sort of caseless ammo, but as you'll see as we get kicking here, it ultimately becomes like a battery charging block. So that is where I will go next.
From that angle, it very much resembles a drum of nails.
Yes. And that was originally my thought, was that it would be something that could be, used to breach a hull, that could not have you're not going to use ammunition. So, like traditional ammunition with gunpowder, there's all kinds of stuff. When you start thinking about space, and you just get lost in ridiculous trying to make it too realistic. But at the same time, honestly,
combustion in an oxygenless environment, thinking about projectiles in a sealed cabin. Yeah, all that shit.
Right. And you have to kind of wonder, like,
thanks, Cliff.
Does anybody else really do
that? Right. Does anybody care about any of this?
So here we go. So I cropped it, turned it sideways, got it fairly straight on the page, and the next step will be to go into Onshape and get it started. Now with Onshape, you have it's a CAD program. Oh yeah, I do too. I really like those. Okay, so this is the Onshape introduction screen. You have your 3 planes, your X, Y, and Z axis, all that kind of stuff. That's not exciting at all. So what we have to do here is, and I'm going to speed this up because I was distracted several times during this. This was, I'm going to add this is me, like I got to throw the image in there, get it arranged so that I can start building it. The first step is going to be to sketch out the shape that I like and getting kind of the silhouette, right? Always about the silhouette. What's it going to look like as a part? I've drawn enough guns to know that the trigger assembly, or this part right here, not necessarily the handle, but this piece here is the key to the entire thing. So when you're using parametrics and you're tying things together, you'll have to deal with that. I don't know what I did here. I messed something up, but that happened a lot yesterday. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and here, let me get this here. So like I say, this is going to be my starting point. So I'm going to start by blocking this out. Now, again, I've done enough of these to know that it is way easier to build each component of the gun as a separate piece. You don't want to tie the whole thing together. Here, I'm just going to block out the shape. And even though this trigger guard design makes 0 sense, it's part of the, it's part of the silhouette of the gun. So I'm going to leave it there, and I stay pretty true to it through the whole design. Me moving lines around. And then, oh yeah, I remember I'm going to do the trigger or the handle separate, the grip separate. So you spend a lot of time with this. Now, this is because I am also trying to imagine what this thing's going to look like and how it's going to go together. If I had a picture of a gun, of a real life gun, this would go a lot easier because I would have my shape. I would know exactly where everything needs to be and what I need to change to not get a cease and desist from a gun company. Just for a placeholder, I use the oval shape.
Morning, Rondo.
Morning. Sorry, I'm going to skip around here a little bit. I don't want to. This was a 20-minute video. This is me doing the handle. Now I'm going to do the silhouette of the stock. silhouette of this assembly. And what
So
takes
you do it this way because, like, if you want to make like a different version of it, like when you did the L85, like you're building the L85, but knowing that at some point you could do the L86 and make it the long gun with the support and the longer
right.
barrel. You could just change out those components, and the
Yeah.
receiver and all that stuff stays the same.
Yeah, like maybe I decide that every gun that I design for this line uses basically the same trigger and grip assembly, and then they just build a different weapon on top of it. Well, this modular style allows me to do that, and it allows me to do that in this one drawing. Like now, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to do anything except start adding on. Also, with the trigger assembly, if I make it bigger or smaller, since it's connected to all the others, they all have an anchor point that connects them together. That way you have you can, if you move one of the anchor points, it moves everything in the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
That is the key to parametric modeling, is that it allows you to tie dimensions together. So if I move something important, everything that's tied to it will slightly move too, which also can be a bad thing. I'll be honest.
Sure.
So I'm blocking in the energy pack. It is not very straight at this point because my artwork was just a marker rendering, and it wasn't. I didn't use a ruler. You need to try on out the grip.
And I guess doing it modular also lends it to, if you ever wanted to print one scale, you could do it by components and then put it together.
That's right. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Scaling up something that you build like this, where you put dimensions on everything, that is the danger of that. If you can just do a scale and scale it up, that's fine. But within the drawing, you can't just scale every dimension up. There's too many computations that it just, there's not a lot of programs that can do it. There are some, but they are very expensive and very it's a big investment to be able to do that.
So that would be like CATIA would let you do that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it is a power hog. I mean, it will mess with the GPU of your video card for a pretty good amount of time. The end result of this part of the exercise was to get the silhouette of the gun. Is it going to look like this when it's done? I don't know. Maybe. At this point, I just wanted to kind of make sure that what I've drawn looks kind of like my sketch, and that's the point of it at this point. So I will pull up another one. I will buzz through this one pretty quick too. But this one is okay. So there's the silhouette. I am going to focus on one part, and like I said, the trigger housing is the most important part for me when I build a gun. So this is what I do. I'm going to go in here and just start blocking this thing out. And this is at 2x speed, so that just tells you how long this crap takes.
It's nothing about this is a quick process.
No.
Not the drawing, not the concepting, not the printing. No part of this is quick.
But it's not quick, but the reward is worth it.
True. And I mean, once it's done, it is done.
Yeah, I am making something that doesn't exist. This is something totally out of my head. So that also takes a little longer. The reason that the trigger guard is so large is the idea that if you were working in space, you're probably going to have some gloves that are a lot bigger than your normal fingers. So even though the end result looks like it's a very large trigger guard, it's like that on purpose. This is for, like I said, this design would be for anyone in any basic suit configuration world could easily pick that gun up and use it.
Which is honestly why a trigger loop is probably a terrible idea, because if you got space gloves on, you're trying to monkey fuck the trigger hole.
Yeah. Detail on the trigger guard, kind of getting the shape the way I want it. This goes through so many versions. So you see how, I'm just going to pause it here for a second. So in this program, when you put good, when you start modeling everything and locking it to something, you guys, the lines turn black, and that's what tells you, like, this is locked in. So no matter what, I am not going to be able to move this part. This is so they turn black. When they're blue, you can still slide them around. You can still move them however you want, and that's just part of it. When you pick a part of the design you really like, then you just go with it. So I kind of got an idea on this grip here. So something that I changed here. Let me just pause this. This is what happens. Okay. When I did the sketch for the hand grip, I used this means that it was anchored to something in this sketch. So you do it 1, 2, 3, you're doing it in order. So if I change something on the original and my restraints don't stay solid, then the next part will get totally jacked. So you have to really watch your restraints. You got to be careful when you delete a line. So what happened here was I had a line going here. It was 2 lines, and this was connected to one of the lines. And when I deleted one of those lines and changed the endpoint, it just threw this entire drawing out. So I'd fix that.
Yeah, this is definitely true. I mean, when I built mine, I definitely did not put a straight close one. I had the Magpul loop. It actually looks a lot like this one in the Dad drew in the picture here. So yeah, it's always a concern, because even operators wear gloves, and that, like it or not, that hinders us a little bit. Your range day, you're wearing gloves. It's nice. You don't have to worry about your 1911 grabbing your thumb webbing.
Yeah. And that's part of, again, design intent. When we talked about that before, like I am really trying to design this kind of thinking, I do want it to look sci-fi. I want it to look like nothing that is really exists in real life, but at the same time, it has to have some kind of real world sensibility. Especially if you're not going to use magic or some other way of getting around the rules,
Sure.
So that's
one of your advantages from how you design, is because you have the engineer mindset, because you've done that for so long now. Like, that's how your mind thinks. So if you're designing something, it has to have intent, as we discussed last week,
right,
or last show.
So here's just me working with trying to figure out how I want this thing to look. It's all very subjective at this point. I just want to get it right. I just want to make it so it looks good, and I can move on to the next piece. So there, I've highlighted it in orange. That's what it looks like. There's those 2 pieces. Now I'm going to work on the back a little bit. There's a little more to the back, because while I'm doing this, I have to think, like, when I put fillets and edges on everything, is it all going to work together? All of that is part of it. Again, it's design intent. You're just like, will this work? Will this work? If I keep going, will it work? So here I've started adding the anchor points, and whether or not it's straight up and down or sideways. And this is just me redrawing it, making it a little closer. My first sketch was just to block it out to get the whole silhouette. Now I'm trying to get a little closer to what the first drawing was. I think in this exercise yesterday, me and this little scissor command, the trim command, became best friends. So that is that part of it. So now I've started blocking it out, and I got to get better at this. 2, 3. So at this point, and this is one of those beautiful, beautiful things where I forgot to hit the record button. So
Happens to the best of us, my guy.
God, you do that, and I'm like,
Happens to
okay,
all of us.
I'm trying to get all this done, try to finish this off today to prove that it can be drawn in a day. And am I really going to go in and delete everything I just did just to film it? And
Just to illustrate a point.
I decided I would not. So at this point, we're going to start blocking it out, and this is when you really start to figure out how everything's going to work together. For whatever reason, this program thinks every time you want to extrude something, it's going to be 25 millimeters. So it makes them ridiculous. Because I'm designing this thing to be fairly symmetrical, it doesn't have to be, but the basic shape of the gun is. So everything is, so I'm doing these at like slightly different heights so that I can keep the detail. And when you're doing something in 1/12 scale or smaller, sometimes you over exaggerate the thickness of a part just so that you are sure to be able, when you print it off, you can see all the pieces, you know. That's one of the things about a weapon like a 417 or 416. Those designs are very smooth. You know, when you look at the side of the, down the side of the rifle, it doesn't have a lot of. I mean, yeah, it's got little things on it, little landmarks on it, but it's a pretty smooth rifle. So anything you put in it, any dimple or anything you put a line in it, you have to over exaggerate it a little bit just so that it'll work.
Sure. Kind of one of HK's like themes for the last 50 years is pretty smooth. They are not cold. They are not cold.
That's right. But even drawing an AR receiver, there's not a lot of depth in real life.
Right.
Between
so you have to over embellish and
yeah.
get it
so you have to do that
first.
stuff. Again, design intent. I know I'm going to 3D print this, so I need to, while I'm designing it, I know I want a certain look, but I also need to make sure that I'm catching detail that can actually be done.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, I do a lot of zooming in and out. It's just those blue lines you see there.
Morning, buddy.
Tony.
See him later tonight.
What do you got? What's he doing tonight?
Well, tonight it's Sunday night, so it's wrestling night. Paulie Pepperjack's gonna put the smack down on some fools. I hope.
That's awesome.
Speaking of which,
me adjusting this. You can see me checking it to make sure I got everything as I go.
Get you some of that.
The muzzle of the gun will become a major situation for me because it's just a 2D sketch. I was just going to block it out and radius the edges, but I decided against that. And in the next video, you actually see how that comes to be. But this is me. I'm staring at it thinking, how the hell am I going to do this? So that it looks like it's paused. And remember, this is on double speed. So this is what happens when your brain freezes up right here. And actually, at this point, I have gone back to the sketchbook and started like drawing out what I would want to do with it.
So kind of some mid production changes you're going through here.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna put it. I got the drawing behind it there, taking a look at it. Now I know this thing is not gonna be a square block, so we're gonna need to put a draft on it, and this is how you get the shape. I put the first draft on it, and the way the draft works in this program, it kicks it out and makes it even wider. So I will have to go back and make it smaller once I get the angles the size I want. I'll have to make that extrusion a little shorter, just so that it doesn't get crazy. This is very boring. So So I'm feeling that. I like that, but I'm going to have to put another draft angle on it just to make it look the way I want it to. There we go. Got it pretty close here, but again, it's the angle goes all the way to the bottom, and I do not want that. So we're going to fix that. With a chamfer at the bottom. So a chamfer is basically you're cutting a corner flat. A fillet is you're putting a roundness on it. A chamfer is just a flat. And so that's what's coming here.
There's a couple of the few terms that I actually remember from drafting class in college.
So here you can see that I can see here what it's going to look like. It gives me a little preview, and it's still kicked out pretty hard at the bottom, and I don't want that. I want it to be straight up and down on the side to match the silhouette of the stock. See how it's doing that right there? Yeah, I don't want that.
Morning, Max.
Morning. So again, some of this is just technique and sometimes a little boring, but you can see that it is flat here now. And I will put a radius on this to make it not seem so obvious. You'll never see that. Some of this work, when you're 3D printing at this size or you're building stuff for this size, you never see some of these details. You just realize that it works. So here's me marking out the radiuses. And I'm going to crank this thing up. You put all this effort into it, and you're building things in tenths of millimeters, you know. So some things are really going to show up and some things aren't. I really want this to be a big rate. There we go. That's much better. So now we've got that.
That's the kind of stuff that like you think nobody would notice, but you would notice if it wasn't there. Like it's one of those things like your eye is going to see it, but you're not going to be able to tell what is wrong. That's just something doesn't look right. That's
exactly right.
That do that.
There. So I'm pulling it in a little bit, so it's not huge. I do realize this is a plastic cover, you know, or a metal cover, depending on how it's made, and it is going to be the thickest part of the gun. So, other than eventually the nozzle for the plasma will end up being pretty big. But there we go. So we're starting to see it's really starting to shape up now. We've got this is going. I'm going to, whoa. Yep, there you go. Welcome to my world.
Look out.
And then I saw it and I was like, oh, I might use that later for something. I like the way that looks.
I want that to have more of a FAMAS look, less crazy like that. It's exaggerated.
Yeah, so this is just me figuring out what I like in the silhouette. Later, when there's a sight that flips up on the front or looks like it flips up on the front, so I want to be sure. I was going to put a really big radius on it, and I was like, no, if I want the sight to flip up and down, I don't want to mess with that. But that's just part of it. That's just personal stuff I get hung up on because I start thinking about how would that really work. I really want it to look functional, you know. So that's kind of where we're at here.
So like with that, like you're thinking it'd be like a carry handle, like several nations have that on their rifles, where there's an analog or if all else fails, iron sights, you know. But
yeah,
you thinking about that like it's a space guy. I know both of us like to incorporate some sort of sighting optic system built into a helmet when we go sci-fi. So like you're thinking like if your helmet breaks and you're on some jungle planet and you need to do something, you still have some kind of iron sight that you can fall back to.
Right. And I would say eventually there may be more things for this gun, but at this point, and you'll see as I start developing the muzzle and the way the emitter works, how that all comes about. And then you realize like sights are kind of worthless on a gun like this. But aesthetically, it looks cool.
It does, and it adds a real element, right? Like that keeps you kind of grounded into the reality aspect of it, is something analog like that.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, like I want it to look alien, but not so alien that your brain is like, what is that?
Yeah,
When you look at it, I want you to know this is a weapon.
right.
That's what we're working on here.
Like a
So
like a pulse rifle, but not a hodgepodge of 6 different weapons.
right,
Yeah,
which is if you're and that's something you think about like Aliens, the rifle in Aliens is underneath it is a Thompson submachine gun
and a SPAS 12.
and a SPAS 12 for the nose. So
Yeah,
they incorporated all those pieces and somehow made a rifle that actually looked like, wow, that looks like it could be a space gun.
yeah, totally believable. Perfect balance too. Like it's still cartridge. It's still like it looks like it takes a cartridge and all that stuff, but it's very spacey. Even though neither the SPAS 12 is not a new gun, and the Thompson was developed in the fucking 30s. Oh, Stacy.
Thanks, Stacy.
Let's see what I see. I got something for you.
Oh yeah. Hold on, let me pause.
You bastard! Hey, I'm just messing with you, Jimmy. I saw you down there.
Thanks, Stacy. Appreciate it. That's a really loud clip. I'm gonna have to work on that. Absurd. Damn.
So at this point, I'm blocking the weapon out, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I have the details that I know are going to be important done. I really try to radius most of the edges. It helps the printer print better. It doesn't seem like it would, but it really gets confused with a really sharp edge unless that thing really needs an edge. So even if I was doing a knife or a sword, I would try to make it just thick enough I could put some kind of radius on it, because it will get to the point where it doesn't know what to do with that very tip. So if you put even just a little radius on it, and it looked big up close, but you see it's really just, it's not much. No, so we're at this point here where I know the next step, I believe, is, I think the stock is next. So that's that step. And this step is double the speed up. So here, to do this, what I want to do is a loft so that this barrel assembly, this muzzle has a cylindrical look. So I have to set planes up to draw the spine of the shape. So now I'm moving planes out. I want one about in the middle, and then I'll put one at the end. And this kind of stuff is, that stuff I was just doing was fairly easy. That was about 2 hours worth of work. We're about 2 hours in, 3 hours in at this point from the very time I sat down with the illustration or the inspiration board. Oh, oh, oh. Gotta be quicker than that. All right, so I'm blocking this guy out. I'm kind of looking at where the shape's going to go, where I need it to go. At 2x speed, those flashes when I pull it out and push back in with the zoom are very fast, but this is how it works. So I'm going to arrange these. I'm going to throw the curve on it. We're going to want the curve. I do want the bottom to be slightly bigger than the top, so it's going to be out a little bit. Like I say, this is the stuff that, messing with it. This is a concept. And this is something you got to deal with even if you're doing a rifle that is, you just have the side view of it. You're kind of trying to figure out how those shapes are really going to work with each other. I want to lock these dimensions in, because when I start messing with the curve, it's going to start trying to move them. And I don't want them to move. I just want the curve to move. This curve here. So I'm just cleaning it up, making sure I got the shapes the way I want it. There we go. And there's a little more of that. I'm going to dimensionally set it so that I can use those dimensions for the next two pieces of the rifle. Now, all right. Now I'm drawing this so that it goes all the way across this, but I'll be cutting this out. I'll be cutting out that shape just like the drawing it. So now I'm on another plane. I'm on the middle plane. So now I got to figure out how it's going to start going to that point. So this one's just going to be a little smaller than that one. And then I'm going to jump to the front. I know how big the front needs to be based on the sketch. So as you can see, once I have that first one, once I have the first one in place, they go a lot faster. Playing with that. Oh, missing the magic here. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to finish out the front, and then I'm going to do what's called a loft. And you're basically lofting between the three drawings that I just did. I want that measurement up there to be the same. So here's what I have. I have on one plane, I have this. Next is this. So here's the loft. I'm going to pick the surfaces. And I don't know if you see here, but I've made a mistake.
Got like a bulge to it?
No, it's got a bulge to it because I did not delete this middle line. So it's only picking up half of the sketch. So go in here and drop that. Now it's going to work. Now we'll be able to just bam, bam, bam. There it is. Yeah, that's really nice.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Morning, Chad.
What's up, Chad?
Getting amped up for your big show tonight.
Now here I'm going to use the extrude command to remove material. You also see here, like at the beginning, I'm really careful about naming everything so I know exactly what it is. But by the time I get done with this thing, I just have a bunch of this.
That's smart. That's what I don't do in GIMP when I make thumbnails is label things where I can reference them quickly. So what is that label? HJ7765C. Like, oh shit, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what we got set for. And I'm going to hide that because I've decided that I don't like it. So I'm just going to stop here for a second and okay. So you see here, this starts out really tight up here to kind of match the design of this. But by the time it gets to the front, I want it to have an almost oval shape. So these had to gradually change. That's what you saw me changing dimensions earlier. I don't want to get them too bad or this will have a lump in it. So I want it to kind of go down at the same size.
So it goes from more of a rounded rectangle to a true ellipse where it's
yeah. And that's what I wanted here. So I've turned on this sketch so I could stare at it for a little while. You see here, just staring.
People that partake in the electric lettuce would probably take that as an opportunity to have a little drag, refocus.
All right, so now that is what it would look like if I was adding it. But what I want to do is do a symmetric cut and remove it. Now I have to tell it what part I want to remove out of, and there we go. So that's pretty close to the silhouette. I'm pretty happy with it at this point. All right, yeah, the building of the battery was one of the things that the charge pack is one of the things that I did offline, off screen, so you can see it down here, smooth edges. We'll be fixing that as I go. So I'm trying to block the shapes out as basic as possible, and then as I go, I will go back and clean up things, add details that that are more important. But at this point, I'm just trying to get the gun blocked out. So here's where I'm going to put a radius on this part to help when it prints. I want this line to be clear, so I'm going to put a radius on that, put a radius on this side too. Speed up here. There we go. Now this is a chamfer, and then I'm going to put a fillet on top of the chamfer. And that gives a little more separation, because they're going to come to a point, but with a fillet, they'll come close to each other and stay close until they separate. The chamfer will allow me to loft it out a little bit. Now this is just a venting barrel, or barrel guard is all this is. That's what I decided after looking at the sketch. I was like, oh, that's what I meant for that to be.
Like a heat shield kind of thing?
Yeah, it's just a place for when this weapon fires, it vents. It's a place for it to vent in case of back pressure, maybe. I don't know.
And you're dealing with plasma and stuff. It's like there's heat. Okay, all right.
And I wanted, in the sketch, I had something there, and I had to come up with a reason why it was there.
Right. Yeah. Just throw some technical jargon, sci-fi movie words. Insert buzzword here.
Insert buzzword here. So do the remove. A little chip knocked out of that. I probably spent several hours just messing with this thing yesterday. Different things. But I do know that I need to turn that off so I can just see what I've got. So get a good look at it.
Hal, I wish I could read your comment, but I'm distracted for some unknown reason. Good morning, sir.
All right, so now I'm just gonna.
It says the gang's all here.
I think so.
Who knew the gangs did mornings? I'm happy about it. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, Hal and Buck Fuddy, they're just killing it on the pictures.
On the thumbnails.
The thumbnail, their icons are iconic.
So in the original sketch, I did not have a barrel poking out, so I decided that I would just go all the way with that and keep that concept going. So here's me hollowing out the barrel.
Morning, Justin.
Hey, Justin. I'm going to skip through some of this. This is kind of how it ends up looking. As the video goes on, I jump around a little bit because I'll think of something. So there's what it looks like. So that's your emitter. So if you were to paint that, you could paint that like a bright blue or a bright green to make it look like it's ready to light up.
Like a heating element almost.
Yeah, the idea is that is the if you're looking at the side of the gun, instead of a barrel, it's basically almost like trying to think of the name of it, like a rail gun, right? So that piece throughout the barrel guides the energy, and then the gun itself emits it. But that is what controls the emission from the, let's say, modulator. We'll call it a modulator.
There you go. Boom.
Yeah.
Real time. Just hit you with it right there.
Yeah. Just
wait. What's up, sir? Good morning.
So this is the developing the stock. I'm going to skip through some of this. A lot of this is just minutia. But it all matters. So what we do here, and we're just going to kind of make sure that everything looks like it was made to be that part. I don't think this works. Okay. So now no matter what I do with this thing, it's locked in those 2 points. So now let's make a bump. Probably not going to be 25 millimeters long, but there you go.
Seems excessive. It's not the magazine on a sten. Jeez.
Right.
Chill out.
Pull it in, filled it up. Let's crank that up a little bit. There. Oh, too much. Okay, 1.5. So, the next steps are, let's see, I think I maybe throw some other parts in here. This is just me kind of going through the lines. I highlight them just so that I can see how they really will print off when they print. And I'm going to need a trigger. I did this like this because I knew that if you were to pull that trigger back, there wasn't room if it was that big. So it's a hanging trigger. Skip through a little bit, and there it is. Finish it off, and I'm good with the trigger now. Like I said, I just start focusing on the pieces that I know, and then I start figuring out what else I want to do. I think this is, let's see what's next. So I put a piece here to where you plug this guy in. So I decided it would be a good idea to have a way to tell how low your energy source was. So I'm going to put what would look like an LED indicator on the side for the charge inside that power pack. So this will take a little bit. It takes a while to put it together. This is me messing with the pieces.
This would be cool. Did you see this thing? The Corleo or something?
Oh yeah.
It's like a 4-wheeler, but it's like legs. It's a 4-legger.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's wild. That's wild. And he mentioned Skynet, so Scott Hughes should be popping in at any moment. Yeah, that thing's crazy. Somebody should definitely do something with that.
Hell yeah. Cool. All right, so this is just putting some chamfers on these edges to give it some variety. I forgot to do this on both sides at the same time, so I have to go back and do that. This is just a button of some kind. I'm sure it does something really cool.
That activates the modulator.
Yeah. So there we go. And I've gone through and changed some of the colors so it's a little more monochromatic, but mainly because I wanted to show what this does. I wanted to color these. So let's do light. There we go. Pick color, and then I just pick the surfaces and change the color. So that's what it would look like. It would let you know that you're. And it was something to do with this empty space after I put this thing on. Yeah, so this is just, like I say, now I'm just going over the whole gun and giving it a little character. And like I say, as I'm going through this, I'm thinking about how the design would actually work and what would be useful and what wouldn't. I thought these lights would be bright enough that if you saw someone had discarded one, you would know if it was ready to fire. in movies, I always like really think people are ridiculous for not, like somehow they pick up a gun and it has bullets in it. Well, this way you would know. So here we are putting on some. Getting ready to vent the vent. Let me speed this up. This is terribly. There we go. I ended up. I need some pop lines here, so I start drawing them out. And then let me see if I go. This must have went really fast. Now there is going to be a point in this video where I do some work that took about an hour, hour and a half to do, and I forgot to hit record. It was still on pause. So this is the longest video I have, but it's about an hour and a half shorter than how much time it really took. Now let's do something here. Let's put some sort of selector switch. This means it's a construction line, so that I can design off of that, but it won't print out. It won't be part of the feature. It's just there to design off of. This way I can make sure that the selector switch is what it's supposed to be. And I'm taking those off because I'm going to put angles on this. And the reason that circle was moving is because I didn't put a dimension on the circle. So it thinks that I can just move all these as I want them. But as I start blocking things out and things turn black, I won't be able to see that won't happen anymore. So the thing to do to make that happen is to make sure that this point sticks to the midpoint of the end. See, now it's all going to stay angled the way it's supposed to. And I just got to find what looks right. Like I say, this is all, like I said, I don't have anything. This wasn't really on the drawing, so this is all just me making it up as I go along.
Sure. Now, I'd imagine there's several people that could model a wall or something for sure.
I bet you could, Hal. Somebody might already make one.
It's true, especially with all the people that do diodes. Like it's, I know not everybody does it. The way Duarte does it. Where he models it and then prints it. A lot of people are scratch builders, and also very cool.
Yeah, there's several people on 3D Cults that have those pieces from other things. So here I put a chamfer on this. I still want the selector switch to look like a selector switch, and it's small enough that it should print off just fine.
Blake, only part of the technology is available right now. And build you something that looks like it, but it won't function right. We're still in the R&D phase.
Maybe a movie prop. Yeah, I really, as I was designing this thing, of course, this is kind of what happens when you're doing something like this. You really become partial to it. You really become partial to the design, and you start seeing how it's going to, in your head, I'm thinking about what it's going to look like with the different figures and all of that. And I know this will be part of the DFW build that we're going to do. So, all the time I'm thinking about that and thinking about what I want stuff to look cool. I want it to look like something not everybody else is doing. And you see me going through some of these drop down menus, and I know some of these things have, okay. So what I've decided to do here is I'm going to use I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically I'm going to just repeat. I'm going to make this feature and then I'm going to repeat it up the side of this battery. Now this is here because this is a little larger than a magazine, in a rifle. So I wanted to be sure I had something there that your gloves would grip when you're snapping them in and pulling them out. So that's what this is. So I will make this piece will be separate of the rest of the model. A lot of times I like to join the components together, but these grip pieces will be separate because I'm going to pattern them.
Look, Hal, thanks for popping in, buddy. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Day.
All right, so these are details that are probably not necessary, but I really like to be thorough.
Sure. And again, you were talking about embellishing things so they come out on the print. So if this was a 1:1 scale, these may not be this pronounced because these are pretty aggressive. But to get it to transfer on a 3D print, things have to be embellished. So they're a little more embellished.
So I'm going to create a linear pattern, and I pick the part I want to do, and I'm going to use the line on the sketch that keeps this angle. And now here I can adjust how far apart they are and how many I want, and it'll follow up this line. So I don't have to draw that 10 times, 5 for each side. Now here's the emitter. Make that black. Now the sad story is I went through all of this and then I realized that in order to get a feature that I wanted on this muzzle, I was going to have to redraw all of those pieces. There it is. There's that hour and a half y'all missed.
Boom. Blipped. Thanos snapped it.
Yeah. That was a little heartbreaking because I had just put the fillets on, or got these put in the side vents, and realized that, oh my God, I'm not recording. Good times.
Yep, fun stuff.
And the drawing had these lines in them, but I don't think it needed them. It felt pretty good. So now I'm going to start finishing up the greebles.
Chad says I'm over here with a Dremel and greebling while John is living in the future. Whatever it is, it's all of our realities right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Crossing timelines and streams, and it's a wild time.
I hope it's something cool, Chad.
Crayon Slayer. So yeah, I hope Chad's working on a video. I haven't seen him. He hasn't done a custom video in a while. He's got projects.
All right. So earlier I was talking about this flip up site. This is me doing the first sketch of it. This takes a while, but there it is. Didn't like my drafts, so I had to do a little work on this to get it exactly how I wanted it. There we go. We're getting there. Getting there. You can do it, buddy. Oh, there we are. Oh, shoot. It did happen.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did I bring up Crayon Slayer? Good morning. Good morning.
All right, this takes a little while. I'm going to block it out. I left these so that they would stay holes in it, so I wouldn't have to punch those in later. I just made them part of the look. I went over the top here just because I think that looks cool, honestly. I'm just going to be real about that.
Okay, all right.
So that's it. But wait, there's more. I realize that there is no side. It's just flat. We'll have to fix that. First, I'll add the fillets and chamfers. Oops, I don't need that. Okay, so get rid of that. We're going to throw a block on top of the gun. We're going to drop it back so that each one is separate. And this is where you kind of get to do some things that instead of remodeling this whole thing, I'm just going to use chamfers to make what I want it to look like. I could use a draft. These are probably drafts because, so a draft, you could put a draft on things like to pull it out of a mold or whatever, and you pick one surface that isn't going to move and the one you want to kick out. This looks okay, but I believe they're at different angles. So we'll do this, and this is when I realized, oh, I can do something that's really cool here. So I will adjust these chamfers one more time. I wasn't sure if the program would let me make them join each other, so I want to put a little more angle on it. There we go. More. Oh, here we go. There's what I wanted.
Oh, you're joining them and they overlap.
Yeah, because it's still one piece, so it's allowing me to play with that a little bit. This is not how I want the real gun to look, but this should be enough for it to 3D print and still have the slot in the top.
TC's got a comment here. Would think the handrail would act sort of like a protective buffer if dropped, and scope would get damaged if dropped collision in space. Like the sighting, like the optic on a G36. Like it's built into the handrail. Realistically, I mean, not realistically, conceptually, we're thinking you would, if you've got a big space bubble, you're not sighting a rifle. There's something on the rifle and in your helmet that's probably giving you some sort of heads up display. So there would just be some analog iron sights, basically.
Yeah.
On the rifle itself.
And again, I talked to Mikey earlier about this. This is some sort of plasma or energy gun. I'm not sure. Yeah, in my head, I'm still trying to figure out, like, well, would you actually even need a sight for something that's firing a 2x4 beam of energy? How accurate do those sights really need? You just really need to be able to line up the front of the rifle. But yeah, that's a good point. And if I was doing this in 1:1 scale, I would fix that trough across the top, and this would actually flip up if you needed it to.
Sure.
Stuff like that. But yeah, it's the handrail, basket handle, whatever you want to call this thing, has multiple uses. But I definitely think that if it was an energy weapon, you would want to protect wherever the capacitor is and the barrel function. You would want to protect that as much as possible. So that's a really good point. There we go. I don't know what that is, but it was in the sketch, and I'll explain it later. Because I had that at the beginning, I couldn't see. You can only see what you've already done. So if you go back and try to draw something old, it won't show all the changes you've made. So I'm dragging it down. They do not have a fast way to do this. It's very frustrating. But you see, when I move it and now I go into it, now I can see what I've already modeled. And let me speed this up. I don't know what was wrong with it. It was having a really hard time with this. But that's what we ended up with. There we go. There's the anal retentive here. I forgot to recolor these after I restructured everything. And building it, I really like this almost pewter color here. I really like that. Yeah, I had this was red, So that means I didn't like something, so I went in and tried to find it. Yes, it probably would. It probably would. That's a good point. That may be something. That may be a good idea, like to change this top scope, this rail here, to change that out to be actually like a laser emitter that runs down that rail to give it another look. I like that idea. All right, I'm gonna draw a bunch of screw holes here. And I'm doing this all on one sketch because I can pick them individually. I can't do them all at once because everything is a separate model. I go through and do those. You can tell I'm just looking at it, trying to think of what else I can do to add some detail. All right, so now I've decided that I need a way to tune the energy beam. Cool. Did not like that. And I will draw that. And I thought, well, you know, if you had gloves on, you wouldn't be able to turn that. So let's go crazy. Let's get it where I want it. A little larger. But the next step will be to add these. I'm going to build this little thin out. I'm going to have to make it bigger because when I did print it, you couldn't even see it. But it looked cool on the model.
See, Kirby. Have a good day, man. Appreciate you watching, dude.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to use the pattern function again. Last time I used linear. Now I'm going to use the circular pattern to go around this entire butt. Merge with that, but I need, there we go.
That's how you turn into 11.
Around this on that. Yeah, that's your tuning knob, I guess. Like I say, I'm making it up as I go along here. That you could probably do without moving your hand very far away from the trigger. And there it is against the original. There it is. Let me stop sharing real quick and go. So that was it. And share. And there it is printed out.
There it goes. Focused.
So my favorite part of this was that with that other piece that I had, so actually seeing two of the components of that sketch that I did for the Starcom plan and then printed out is pretty cool. You can see that the emitter printed out well. And you probably can't see it, but none of the little ribs, you really can't see them in the dial. But that's what I ended up with. So all in all, for print time, a good thought in your head is pretty much a $1 per print hour on a part that size. If you can print more, obviously more than one. I printed 6, 3 of them didn't turn out, or 2 of them didn't turn out, so I ended up with 4, which I can't really figure that. That's just part of it. So, this is just a few bucks, to make this for somebody to print one of these up. That's why if I sell guns on the website, pews or whatever you want to call them, if I sell them on the website, they're $5. And that's why it's you're not just paying for the resin, you're paying for the time it takes me to clean it, to cure it, all of the steps. But I really thought this turned out pretty good, just for
yeah.
Now, like I said, the sketch, getting to inspiration board to knowing exactly what I was going to draw and make yesterday took about an hour. And I think I worked on it probably for the next 8 or 10 hours, but not straight. Onshape said I logged about 7.5 hours on it all day, off and on. But a lot of that was just staring at the screen, figuring out what I was going to do next. I had a job a couple of weeks ago I did for somebody that they asked me to do for them, and asked me to put it. It was in Onshape. They asked me to put it in a folder they had, so I had to do it on their, in their account. And after I did it, I was done with it, and they came back and said, no, I need you to put it in this other file. Well, because I can't just move it, so I had to redraw the whole thing. Now, I'd already drawn it once, so it didn't take a lot of time, but what would have been a 2-hour job turned into a 3-hour job, because it was a pretty simple part. It was a Lego arm, I think. So that's a pretty simple part. It isn't simple like the chest would be. The arm has some complicated angles to make it work. But, so that took 3 hours. So, me doing this yesterday, I got close to 8 hours into it. So that's back to what we originally said we were going to talk about. So let's say that I only said I really spent 7 hours on it. And I said earlier that for CAD work, I get $45 to $50 an hour for models. Now, it's not necessarily CAD work, so because there's a lot more to that, right? I'm not just doing a drawing for you to print off and go make something. You actually needed a model, or I needed a model. So 7 hours. So that's that would make it so that if you were asking me to do this, realistically, I got about $350 of my time, resin, materials, about $350. So that's, so that is the initial scope. Now, that if you were making an entire set for a figure, it's going to take a lot more than that. Drawing a weapon or a part in Onshape is, I don't want to say easy, it's complicated, but it doesn't have to fit anything else. So like the sci-fi build and the Dragonsky build, those go over chest pieces, or they go over the arm pieces. And when you're doing stuff like that's if you don't have a 3D scan of the figure that you're doing, you've got a lot of guesswork and a lot of tweaking that you have to do. You have to print it and then modify it again, and print it and modify it again. And there is some frustration there, mainly because, a print like that, a print could take anywhere from 4 to 6 hours or a piece like that. So that is so you got to think about, for 6 hours I got to find something else to do and hope that I still care about it when it's time to take it off the printer. So that's part of it. But what I normally do is, if I'm printing, I know I'm going to get something done, I try to get it all finished to go to print, and then I plan on that next few hours, to be whatever else I'm going to work on, and it's productive. So the work doesn't stop just because another part goes on the printer, because we have a pretty good backlog of parts to get modeled. So it's not like it's just dead time. There's always something else to work on, something else to do. Now the Lego piece, that was something they needed really fast, and so that, I didn't feel bad about, the extra hour that I felt bad because I was going to have to charge them, because still my time. But so that's kind of the end of the presentation, from inspiration board to 3D printed part. I'm pretty happy with the results.
Looks good. Looks real good.
TC's got me thinking about some stuff on it, so maybe some changes. But that's also part of it when you're designing in a vacuum like that, and you're just trying to come up with something cool and something you want to do, and you're just kind of making it up as you go along. And then someone says well, this, and it depends. Like if like on the sci-fi armor, for the sci-fi build, like I try to just make that look almost exactly like the 92 figures gear.
Sure.
I don't, I'm not trying to make it. A lot of things, it's really weird to use a blanket statement, because some classified, G.I. Joe classified stuff is trying to do exactly what they did, and then other things they modernize it.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that particular build, because one of the things about that figure, that sci-fi figure, is the black chest piece is super shiny and smooth compared to, he's got really great detail in his clothing. So it's not like they cheaped out. So to me, there was an intent that armor would be super smooth.
Yeah. I mean, it's like designing contrast into the character. Like, his suit has a lot of texture, so his armor doesn't have a lot of texture. Otherwise, you're going to have an overload of texture. And I know that sounds good, right? Like, you're like, well, you're not skimping out. Everything has a texture. But at some point, it's like, it's an overload. Like, there's too much going on in a character. Like, I joked earlier about you adding lines like McFarlane. That is very much an issue. Like, sometimes when you look at McFarlane's like Spider-Man stuff, you're like, the line should be there because it's the webbing on Spidey's suit. However, when you draw Wolverine, his face shouldn't look like a tic-tac-toe board. And sometimes, especially in those middle years, he got really into it, and Liefeld did the same thing. So it's that kind of stuff. It's like, sometimes there needs to be a contrast of light texture and heavy texture. Sometimes there needs to be it's contrast is often thought in colors, but textures is also a implement as well. Like, a car with a really smooth, really plain body, that's the kind you want have like some really detailed ornamental wheels. Like, it's the contrast of elements.
Well, a good, that's a good segue, because you think about when carbon fiber became, like, they started making decal paper of carbon fiber, and people were like doing entire cars in carbon fiber, and that was cool just because that was a new thing. Doing wraps and things like that was new, but now your entire car looks like houndstooth trunk lining.
And especially with that kind of stuff, you lose the lines of the car, because everything's basically like camo. You basically do what car companies do to mitigate leaks of new cars. They put those wraps on the cars that have all the crazy patterns and stuff, so you can't see the lines, you can't see the design, and so when you wrap it all in carbon, you lose all of it. So you're taken away. Whereas you do like I don't know, the Audi R8, when they came out with those, you could get those sail panels in raw carbon fiber, You get like little accents, but the rest of it was a color or two in some cases.
And a lot of that's taste, but when you, and I'm not, there's no reason not to wrap a car if you want to wrap a car. But the thing is, I think the idea here is that there is a figure at this size, it's 6 inches tall. There can be like a visual overload, and seeing so much detail and so much craziness, that might work for a certain character or something. But when you look at real life, yeah, sure, if you were looking at a real soldier, the magazine pouches are going to be a different material and have a different texture than the shirt versus like, it cracks me up that Classified, they go into this intense detail on the pants.
Yeah, the rip
fabric
stop
patterns,
intense.
but the shirts are all smooth with just a little texture on them, for the mold. And it's so weird to me. Like, why that choice? Like, for a t-shirt, I get it, but if you're trying to say like Dusty or Stalker, they're basically, well, not Stalker, but Dusty, or Stalker, even some of the Cobras, like that texture on the pants should match the tunic.
Sure, because it's made from the same fabric. Like, if you're thinking about BDUs are the same top to bottom. Now, if you've got a frog shirt or a t-shirt, then there's the difference. Or a sweater, as the original Joe's always looked like it was a sweater. That's a different texture. But even when they did the second Firefly, like, he has a very light texture across his whole thing because it looks like it's supposed to be one jumpsuit. Right. So it all has kind of it's almost like a crosshatch pattern all over it instead of the ripstop.
Yeah. That was a pretty good update on that figure.
I agree.
But that, and maybe that's something in the future they'll do more of. I hope so. But that's something that takes you out of it, because in my head I'm looking at it and I'm like, so is the shirt made out of a different material, or is this just for manufacturing purposes? What I really think is, early on, the chest, the torso is ABS, and it's a harder plastic. So it may have been more difficult. You probably could have put the texture on the arms, but not the shirt. And they've slowly started getting to where they can put the texture in the ABS, because just like everything else, everything changes and we get more technology and we're able to do things. The manufacturer says, "Oh, I think we figured out a way to put this texture on it."
That could be. The Cobra Trooper has texture across its entire body.
It does.
Now they did that overlay thing that was the first wave, so they had that overlay that went on the top of the shoulders,
and seeing that overlays PVC. So that's the thing, you can put a texture on PVC a lot easier, because when it pulls out of the mold, it's not rigid. It can have a little give to it.
Yeah.
Whereas ABS, that's your shape. That's the shape that's going to come out. That's what you're going to get.
And when you're talking about curves, that texture matters, because those are going to inevitably create negative drafts where if you pull it out, now you've got a broken texture because it didn't pull out of the steel or copper mold properly.
Correctly. That's not such a big deal if you're just doing silicone molds in your basement, or you're making.
Not a big deal. You can do one-piece molds and you're fine.
Yeah, you can go pretty crazy with that. So anyway, I just wanted to start. What I'd like to do is maybe not as long, because this one was to kind of show just some of it. Seems like a simple part, the amount of time that it took to design it and put it together. But this wasn't just a simple part. This was the entire rifle, and I was designing it as I went and trying to, in my head, come up with ways to make it look visually exciting other than the silhouette. I still wanted to have details, and I still want it to feel like a real military weapon, but at the same time, it is just a little gun. I mean, that's all it is. And so that's how much time goes into that. Armor is the same way. When you're doing armor pieces, you got to think it through. Like, where's it going to hit the figure? How am I going to make it look like it's a smooth piece of armor if it's going to go over the blousing of the pants into the boot? So you got to think about all that. And that stuff takes time, and sometimes it's trial and error, and sometimes it's just, if you have, like I said, if you have a scan of the figure you're going to build it for, and that just makes everything easier.
Sure.
But you don't always
literally build right on top of the figure.
Yeah. Yeah, you can use Boolean geometry to just take the. There's all kinds of tricks you can use if you have that piece.
Sure.
So that's just kind of it. I thought it'd be fun to do this just to kind of show what goes into it. But I figure that over the next couple of weeks or over the next couple of shows, we'll do more. We'll show a lot more on the development of the Spaceman. The gun was just an easy one that I knew I could get done in a day. I picked it. I'm working on the helmet and chest piece design and backpacks, and there's all kinds of stuff going on in the studio right now. We got a couple of stuff for you for customs. We got all kinds of stuff in the queue. So that'll be a lot of the stuff that I'm building for Mikey's customs will end up in the store. So it's a good way to try to recoup some of the time that goes into it. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't mind because the more I do and the longer I do it, the faster I get at it. And
true.
The easier it is to find a solution for something that may not, I may not have known yesterday, but now I know, I could do that next time.
Yep.
So that was.
Yep. Yeah,
that was
at the end of the day, you're still logging time towards your 10,000 hours to become an expert on a subject.
Right.
It's all honing the craft, and and we figured if I'm wanting it for a custom, I'm probably not the only one that wants that specific piece. So this is just kind of a way for me to get what I want and John to be able to justify the design and the labor that he puts into stuff. So, and
plus I like doing it.
It's true. There's still joy in it, which is kind of important.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. So, we got little TC. Appreciate you watching, man.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks for your input. We like you said, we like the input. If you have sometimes the outsider's perspective is the fresh take you need to finish out a project or really put the final touch on it. So
it is.
Voices, thanks for showing your tips, tricks, and techniques. We're all about it.
Yeah, I don't.
Not big gatekeepers in the family.
Not at all. We're pretty terrible at gatekeeping, actually.
It's true. We'll tell you our secrets.
I'll share it all. Like the guitar string hose, like that was something years ago. I got a little pack of these at Hobby Lobby, these bracelets, and they were made out of this coiled spring material. I never could figure out what it was, and then a few weeks ago, I realized that it was guitar string.
A fucking E string.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So that totally, I was like, well, hell, I'll start designing to use that anytime I need something smaller than the weapon hose. I'd love to find something that worked for that too. That isn't necessarily having to buy barbecues and televipers.
Yeah, that's a good point. Or you get a Monster Force figure and you get 8 to 10 different hoses.
Yeah, that one figure has
don't forget about them.
That's the ROI on those, whereas barbecues you can still find for relatively cheap, but
true,
dropping $35-40 for a hose is kind of hard to.
Yeah, it's more of a you want the figure, so if you buy it, you can also use whatever it is.
Thanks, Blake. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. It's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Really looking forward to you and Zakanan's fight. It's gonna be cool. I don't know if we're gonna do that in the parking lot or if you guys have maybe found a destination to do that in, but I think we're all looking forward to see who's gonna come out on top. Are you yet? We're gonna find out. adding some shout outs in the chat here. And Zakan still hasn't found his cat, so you guys keep him in your thoughts, man. He's having a hard time with it. He's missing his buddy. I just read Blake's comment.
Yeah, I did.
Impression workshop. That sounds hilarious.
It'd be really good if that workshop included puppets like Dracula's Lament.
Oh, that would be good. That would be good. I think he's announced it yet, but and then, of course, Wednesday, we've got JMK Custom Works Live. This is probably going to be the wrap up on the Action Assault figure Arctic figure build. The details are all there. I'll clear coat it, and then we'll do assembly and that kind of stuff on the show is probably what it will be. So that'll be cool. That'll be Wednesday, of course, and then Thursday after Mega Power's Thursday Night Thunder, we'll be doing Figure It Out with It's Chad. Yeah, coming on the show. We're doing another video game. This time we picked 5 genres, 5 different kinds of games, and our favorite game that represents the genre. So, shoot 'em ups, fighting games, adventure, big sandbox games. And we're gonna see how many of those light up with Ghost Recon Wildlands, because Chad and I are big fans of that game. We've taken many trips to Bolivia. All right, that's all my ass kiss in there. Pop, you got anything to wrap it up with? You got any final thoughts for the folks still watching us? All 17 of them.
Not really. I know the replay squad will be watching too. The thing is, kind of, if you guys have feedback, like, let us know. Our whole purpose here was to do something where we would talk about customizing and that sort of thing. And once we get through these builds, we'll be doing probably more custom stuff, talking about individual customs. Sure. Obviously, there will be a sci-fi build and a Dragonsky build at some point here in the next couple of months. And if this stuff, if you find this interesting or you don't, let me know, because I'd like to. I don't want to bore everybody when they watch the show. I actually want to share things that I feel like there's a lot of content creators out there that are doing stuff, and I just want to do something that, like, I can watch a lot of videos on how to put together car parts, or PlayStation controller holders. I can see all that. I really just wanted to do something that just talked about toy stuff, and in particular this 1/12 scale figures, because I think it's a great scale for customizing. It's a great scale for You know, like honestly, like the sci-fi kit, you know, building a set of armor like that for a 3 3/4 figure would be very difficult, and lots of people do it. I just think it's a lot more fun in the classified scale because you can put just the right amount of detail. You know, you can get detail you normally can't. Yeah. So that's
Yeah. So yeah, with that being said, let us know in the comments what you think, what you like, maybe what you dislike, what you think we could improve on. We're both
or
fans of
something we've
constructive
talked about
criticism.
you want us to elaborate on.
Yeah, yeah. If you want more information on an aspect of it or anything like that, just let us know. I think we're both fairly approachable people, so let us
Fairly.
know. With that being said, guys, can't thank you enough for tuning in. Replay Squad, appreciate you.
Very much so.
You guys have a fantastic rest of your Sunday. Be sure to check out those links. You're looking for something to do this afternoon, head on over. We got friends. We want to support them too.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, you guys have a fantastic day. Until we see you again, you have a good one. All right.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Eat my short.
Go fuck yourself.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
Flush that turd down the drain. Avenge me! Avenge me!
Thank you. Thank you.